All right, everyone. My name is Pascal Borel, and I'm speaking to you from the Swiss mountains. I've been away from any social network platforms for the last 2 years because I was blocked by threats of various people and blocked by the constraints applied to me by the Swiss banking industry and by some contract that I had signed with the royal family of England. I also kept my mouth shut for respect to the different partners which are helping me sorting out this matter. It's been 2 years since I'm trying to open a dialogue to make sure that we sit around the negotiation table in order to find a win-win deal where we do not destroy the capital, where we basically prefer negotiation but war. Of course, the people that I have in front of me, they hide to some extent behind the code of procedure, the legal framework, which is the sacrosanct Bible that most lawyers will use. And I understand them. I'm not blaming them for that, because all lawyers, they survive and their business model is lawyer's fee. So the lengthier the procedure, the more money they can make. But it's a bit of a shame that we can't even talk about the problems in order to find solutions. We have to let them drift to a point where people have no choice. And I'm certain we will find a negotiated solution. It will come in due time. But I can't wait anymore. I need to speak to you about the dysfunctional democracies and what I'm going to suggest in the next few days and weeks in order to restructure our democracies and the constitutions and so forth. But one thing at a time. They are trying to threaten me with going to jail or, taking all my assets and so forth, which is fine with me. And it's kind of fun that the legal framework, is menacing me, threatening me to go to jail just because I'm telling my story. If we went from the last scavengers to the top predator of the planet in less than 100,000 years, which is an achievement that no other species have been capable of in the history of the evolution of life. It's due to language, to the capacity that we have to communicate with one another, tell the future generation of what we've done right and what we've done wrong, so that the next generation can build up upon not repeating our mistakes and putting in evidence and using what has worked well for the species. It is the main driver of the evolution of the human beings into the position that we're in at the moment. And may I remind you that this success, the language, is the driver of the most successful species on Earth in the history of life. Now, if a legal framework stops human beings from using what has made the success of our species, the legal framework should be amended, replaced, potentially. Because it's just not on. If an honest family father cannot tell you, his kids, and future generation about what has worked or not, and is thrown in jail for it, it's an upside. We're totally south, basically. We are totally south. And the funniest thing, the sweetest thing really, is that they think that I'm going to be threatened by something like that, by the code of procedure. Myself, I don't have a code of procedure. I have a code of honor. And this is the only one that drives my life, the education I give to my kids, and the way I'm speaking to you today. I will not lie. I never lie. I'm not clever enough to lie, because I have to invent another one to protect the first one and yet a third one to protect the second one. And I'm not clever enough for that. I'm not going to do it. But on the other hand, let's face it, my name is Borel, B-O-R-E-L. And in Old French, it means, and I'm sorry for that, executioner. Because we were mercenaries. And we still, today, guard the Swiss mercenaries, in inverted commas, still guarding the Pope. Those are the Swiss guards. We were guarding and fighting for the King of France, for the Habsburg, for, the Swiss always have been among the best warriors of all time. This is why we had a democracy half a millennium before the French Revolution, and probably about 150 years before Cromwell in the UK. Every mercenary squad, Swiss mercenary squad, had one element to apply the discipline. Because if one would not be faithful to his oath, none of the squadron would be paid. And therefore, they would always choose a man to apply discipline and to make heads roll if one of them was to be unloyal to the rest. And of course, they didn't choose the smaller one, the weakest one. I'm myself close to 100 kilo for 1 m. And the Borels were the executioner. Not to say that I'm like that, no way. But, it's part of our genes. We're not going to let anyone rule the show when we believe it is unfair, unethical, or unlawful. And the funny thing is that those guys that I'm dealing with think that I'm going to be afraid to be jailed or to be sanctioned in any form and way. The funniest thing of all is really that I've been speaking about this with a few journalists in the normal medias, in the classic medias, what you call sometimes the fake news medias. And they loved my story because I was showing them the contracts being signed, who are the notaries involved, who are the lawyers involved, who are the banks involved, who are the director, president of the boards involved, and so forth. But they said, Mr. Borel, I had a call from some of them, for example, 3 days later, saying to me, we had threats, physical threats on physical body, not even threats about having a fine or having to go in the trial, but physically, if we are to disclose this story. So I trust I'm not going to have to, but I also trust that when I do, if I have to, it's going to be absolutely great for each and every one. It's going to make the headlines, that's clear. And funnily enough, all of what I'm saying here is very similar to the political environment in which we are trying to live today. In the sense that we live in an empire of lies, which is driven most of the time by the advisors to the politician that we've elected. And this is one of the reasons why democracies are so dysfunctional today. Because we all bragging about democracies and we should preserve it and so forth. Yeah, but man, may I remind you, democracies in Latin is demos kratos. Demos, the people, kratos, decides. Today, have you recently been deciding anything about, I don't know, the COVID crisis? About the war in Ukraine? Or anything like that? Of course not. Because when you elect your president, when you elect your representatives, it is the time that you decide you're not going to decide anything anymore. It's game over. You've given this power to your representatives. And let's face it, in the history of life, Do you know any species or member of a species which is going to put rules which are going to hinder their capacity to strive and accumulate quality of life and so forth? No. Your representative are going to drive the rules and regulations to protect themselves as a top priority. They're not going to put the regulations that will lower their power or making them accountable to you. Doesn't work that way. They'll work for protecting their own interest, and every single law and decision that they're taking is there to protect their interest and the interest of their advisors, mostly financial interest. There is no conspiracy. If they don't do it, someone else, their competition, will occupy the place they're in today. So they are like almost binded. They do it because, not because it's, they're bad people. No, they're good people. It's the environment that constrains them to betray you, to let you down, to favor the financial interests of their advisor, to promote war, to promote the pharmaceutical industry, to make sure that, again, they protect financial interest. So we need to put back, as we say in French, the church in the middle of the village, making sure that now we're addressing your concern, that we give you the capacity to decide. And the best way to do it is to put in place constitutional amendments which will define the boundaries between which the government can evolve and perform its mission. The key to do this is to put in place a social non-cooperation. Because I'm never going to ask you to lower yourself to the legal violence which is being used by governments and your state to steal your liberties, to steal your freedom, to stop you from being able to just, express yourself. No, it's not going to go. I'm never going to ask you to be violent. Or social non-cooperation doesn't tolerate violence, no weapons, not a single drop of blood will be spread. But what we're going to do is make sure that we take advantage of the weakness of our democracies after a few decades of very poor leaders. And we're going to make them hit the wall so that they are absolutely forced to do the constitutional amendments which only will bring us back on the right track and make our democracies strong again. And we need to recover our freedom, our purchasing power, our capacity to decide. As I said, democracy, demos, kratos, the people decide. And you're not going to delegate this power to any representative. No way. So after 2 years of absence, I'm coming back to you with a project. As I said, social non-cooperation, which is, by the way, the frame of mind in which was Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, who recovered India from the most powerful empire, colonial empire in the history of mankind, the UK, colonies empire. And he's done it with not spreading a drop of blood, just by social non-cooperation. And we need to stop the money flow that goes to our governments, because we have a proverb in the Swiss mountains where I live, which says, who pays command? And you, through direct taxes, indirect taxes, succession taxes, and mostly inflation, give the government 60 to 80% of the value generated by your hard work, of course they will command. Of course they have all power to do whatever they want of you. So we need to stop this from happening. The second thing, and most important probably, is to check the value of your savings, of your currency with your bank. And I'll give you, a guide, a path to follow, which can be used by each and every one of us, which is utmostly simple, and which will guarantee the success of our action. Social non-cooperation, we call it lying flat, or in China, they call it let it rot. There are many movements which are already on top of this. And we're going to recreate, as I said, the boundaries, but we're going to recreate a fear for the politicians that will guide their action, or which will create the discipline in which they need to evolve and work. And we're going to give them, the politicians, a fabulous opportunity to enter in the history books, being the people that have changed democracies and put them at the service of human beings, no special interest, no financial interest, no, in the interest of human beings, to make sure that the next generation will be able to blossom and strive in the natural and human environment we're building for them. I guarantee you the success. I guarantee it. Peace out.